This little color chart is going to help me explain to you the different components of color, which are hue, value, and intensity. And this is going to be useful when you're mixing colors, when you're trying to understand why colors work the way they do, and just getting to know the language of painting. So the hue is what we often think of as the color. So the hues along the top of this chart you will see are red, purple, red, red, orange, orange, yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, blue, purple, and purple. So those are basically all the hues that we see. And you know, this is a basic chart, so we're not going to have every single hue on here, but this will help you gauge. So the next component of the color is the value. So for instance, we think of this as a red, but it's actually a red in a value 4. The value refers to the lightness and darkness of the color. So we've got all these value numbers getting progressively lighter as we go up the chart, with white at the top and black at the bottom. So if you have a red at a value 4 or a 5, these are both quite commonly thought of as reds. If you lighten red, this is still a red, but it's a lighter red. Easier to see maybe with something like blue. So blue over here, various shades of blue, lighter blue, darker blue. We're a little more accustomed to thinking of a light blue rather than a light red. So here's our greens, medium value green going up lighter and darker. So that's the value. And value is really important when you're looking at your paintings. More mistakes are made in value than anything else. If there's an issue with a painting, quite often it's an issue of value. And incidentally, when you're painting in a realistic style, the value is the most important component. You can change the hue, you can mess around with the intensity. The value really has to be kept quite close to reality, or it won't read as a realistic painting. So hue and value. The third component is intensity. So let's go back to our blue. Here's blue in a value 5. So if we're speaking about color, and I mentioned to you in any of my videos or any of the text that we're looking at a middle value blue or a value 5 in blue, you'll know that this is the color I'm referring to. Now, if we talk about the intensity of the color, here, as you see these little squares here, this is the blue at a pure intensity. This is as it gets a little duller. And we often think of a grade blue or a powder blue or something that's a little bit duller. And here it's getting duller still. And this is really important in understanding colors, because our eyes and our knowledge of mixing of colors, it's sometimes very difficult to determine what color something is as they get a little more muted or less intense. So for instance, when you get down into the dark reds and oranges here, or you get into the muted, lighter reds and oranges, they all kind of look brown. So you can't really describe a color and say it's brown, because there's so many different components. We have to be a little more specific if we're going to understand colors. So this, for instance, is a value 2 red-orange. And as it gets duller, less intense, the intensity goes down, it gets to be quite a grade brown. These colors, the less intense red-oranges, are pretty close to skin colors, depending on your skin. So you can see that if you are mixing colors, it's important to know the hue, because those are the pigments you're going to grab. You wouldn't grab a red purple and start to lighten it hoping to get this color. You wouldn't grab a yellow and try to get it to get this color without adding other colors to it. So in mixing colors, knowing where your color falls, knowing what it looks like, you know where to start with your color mixture. And you also know what to add to change it, to make the color shift a little bit more to what you're looking for. So that's the basics. I'm going to go into a little more detail in the next video. I've zoomed in a little closer on the color chart so that I can better show you an example of how the colors will behave when we're mixing them. So let's say you wanted to mix a color like this. And so you look at the colors you have, and maybe you have red. So this is Pyrrole Red Light, and it's right in here. And then you have a yellow. Let's say we have Indian yellow. How about this one? So you've got this color, and then you have Indian yellow. And if you mix those two by drawing a line between these two colors, they're close to each other, and you will get a color that's very much like this. But perhaps if you were going to use this red, Pyrrole Red Light, and you only had this yellow, this is a yellow-green, Permanent Lemon Yellow, and it's quite a yellow-green shade. What's going to happen with that? Well, you will get a mixture somewhere in here, but because they are so far apart on the chart, what is going to happen to the color is it'll move slightly. It will either get a little more up or down, but most likely it will get a little more neutral. It won't just mix in a straight line. So you would more than likely, because yellow-green has some green and blue or blue in it, it would neutralize the red a little bit. So it would make your color somewhere in here, but a little more neutral. So you're not going to get the color that you want, mixing colors that are too far apart if you are mixing a pure color. If you're mixing something that's a little less intense, a lower intensity, a little more neutral, whichever way you'd like to refer that, then you'll be fine. And if you, same example, if you were using something like a Permanent Red Violet, which is in the red purple, you could not mix that with your Indian yellow and expect to get right in the middle, because again, there's blue in there. Red purple would have a little hint of blue in terms of talking about red, yellow, or blue. So that's a cool red, a little more blue red, and this is a really orange yellow, but they're going to neutralize slightly. So we'll get into some actual color mixing in the next video, but that gives you an idea. So if you mix two colors that are relatively close together, you will get a color in between. Let's say you mixed, back to the previous example, you've got your Indian yellow and your Permanent Lemon Yellow, which is a yellow-green. Those are fairly close together, so you will get something in the middle. It won't be too neutralized. And this chart will help you, even if you mix two colors a long ways away, then you compare your color, the one you got, with what you are wanting, and you can actually move the color slightly by mixing in another color. So we will get into that in the next video, but that's what I mean by the color chart, assisting you to mix colors.